by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
I love America. I love the Constitution. I love the First Amendment. I want to carry and all guns. I love it, property. And let me tell you something. If you care about your country, read Ludwig von Mises and the 6 lessons of the Austrian Economic School, motherfuckers.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
I want to play you something before we go to our guest. I don't believe that what we're dealing with Fauci is an accident. I know it to be intentional. It's a confession of sorts. But there are good people trapped in these arenas of health that are bullied, extorted, threatened, and character assassinated. Some still steadfast. Dr. Thorpe, James Thorpe.
How about miscarriage? 58-fold increase in miscarriage from the COVID-19 vaccines compared to that of the influenza vaccine. And I could go on and on. Fetal death, 38-fold increase. This is what I've seen. This is what the data shows. My patients are the rate-limiting factor of future generations of the human race. I want to ask why the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology, why the American College of OBGYN, and why the Society of Maternal Fetal Medicine, all of whom I've served in a professional capacity in an outstanding fashion my entire career, why they are pushing this lethal vaccine in risking the future of all humanity.
Developing right now, newly released texts from Dr. Anthony Fauci show he privately discussed COVID vaccine risks to pregnant women. Republican senators Rand Paul and Ron Johnson dropped the first batch of messages from Fauci's government phone today in a January 2021 text chain between then CDC Director Rochelle Walensky and Dr. Vivek Murthy, who later became Surgeon General. Dr. Fauci, mentioned the second dose of the COVID shot, quote, theoretically could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester.
Doctors knew. Fauci knew. The other players in government knew. And yet, what did you hear?
Vaccines are safe. I promise you, they are safe and effective. Listen to Dr. Fauci.
No, thank you. Resist anything coming out of the mouth of a liar. Thank God I grew up with smart people. My next guest did as well. She is the president of Children's Health Defense and has been involved in the health freedom movement for over 20 years. She's written articles. She's written books. She's behind the movie Duty to Disobey, which is out now. It is my honor to talk to Mary Holland, Esquire, attorney at law school. I know what that means. How are you, Mary?
I'm great. How are you, Shaun?
I'm aggravated, Mary. You know why? In my neighborhood, when someone lies to you, they get to do it once, and that's it. Nobody does it again. And then at best, you heckle them from across the street. If you ever want to talk to them or you know their family, you call them Hans Christian Andersen. Liars and frauds. You know what happens in the real world? They get big jobs and they make tens of millions of dollars and they get away with it. Very aggravating.
I agree with you. Fauci, it's a sad commentary that he was in his job as the head of that National Institute of Health agency for over 40 years. And as Senator Johnson has said, they lied through their teeth. They knew that these were risky products. They knew they didn't have adequate safety signals. They knew there was going to be a problem in the first trimester. They knew that natural immunity was real. All of it was lies. They knew the mask didn't work. They knew there was no science behind the distancing. They knew it all. And I think some of us understood that from the beginning, and we're fortunate. I think the rest of the world is waking up to that they lied. They knew from the beginning that this was going to be a disaster and that millions of people would die, and that's what happened. And it's not over. Some of the repercussions from not only the children's loss of education, but the diseases that have come from the shots. People are still in trouble.
the vaccine will kill more people than COVID. I've been aware of this ever since we saw the push, the insane push for something that at the very least was controversial. And, this is something that we've been slow cooked to when you really think about it. But this all coincides with Dr. Anthony Fauci, or Dr. Pickleface, as I like to refer to him, because I don't think that's a nose. It's more of a foot. However, what you have on your hands is proof of corruption, meaning everything he did from 1968 to now is not valid anymore. Why isn't everyone ripping out? This is the other thing, Mary. In the real world, when you catch somebody doing this, you have a business, you are manufacturing something. If something like this happens, you stop everything and you rip out all of the things that don't work, and then you move forward. But government doesn't do that. In fact, I learned, getting ready for your interview, is the government doubling down on or quadrupling down on stupid? Are they mandating this insane mRNA for sailors now and the Navy?
No, they're not. They're not mandating the flu shot, the mRNA for sailors. But the mRNA shots should never have been approved by the FDA. People left so that they didn't have to approve them. This is, a two-faced policy, candidly, both doing some good things about a criminal referral for Fauci, an executive order maximizing parental choice over vaccines, but at the same time, green-lighting another very dangerous, poorly studied mRNA flu shot, which will be on the market, now for the fall. It's only approved right now for people 50 and over.
How much of what we're told when it comes to health is fraud? I say this seriously to you because one thing, when you love history, you look back through the ages. You could look back, I don't know, as far as you want to go. We've had very old people since the dawn of humanity. And yet I don't think anybody that was around, say, 2000 AD was on blood pressure medication. Where is the big success other than telling me you're successful? This is what frauds do in the neighborhood, right? They put a suit on and a tie. What's an expert? A stranger in a tie. And you tell me how good it works, but you can't show me how good it works, can you?
Well, I'll tell you, even the medical journals, which are bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical industry, say that 50% of what's in there is wrong, right? And I think maybe the other 50% is made up of an awful lot of fraud. You have to be extremely skeptical of any health information today in the United States. That's just the sad truth. You have to be very skeptical to protect yourself.
Fauci has two scandals in his past that are one of those should have taken down this guy and this entire organization. Whether it's in the 1976, the vaccine for the first flu that came out, and it was the same side effects. Guillain-Barré disease was attached to it. I had people call up that are older and were victims of this. 1960 Minutes did an expose. Mike Wallace came out and did a whole thing of the uptick of failure from that vaccine. And then you told me it was going to improve. But also he circumvented the AZT scandal. How did he survive these scandals? Is it just because when you're in government, people expect you to fail? You and I are old enough to remember who went to work for government, but people who couldn't get jobs in the regular world, in the private sector. Everybody had that one cousin. He's stupid. Take the civil service test. That's how it used to be. So you just expect them to fail, don't you?
Well, I agree with you that he's failed up. I think the way that he kept his job and was so central to everything around health in the country for over 50 years is that he was bringing in money from pharma. So the laws in 1980 permitted the government basically to get royalties from pharma. So, and then there's foundations for the National Institutes of Health and the Centers for Disease Control and the Food and Drug Administration. So he's a part of this public-private partnership. So he was bringing money to himself, he was bringing money to scientists, and he was bringing money to the government. And I think that's what allowed people to look the other way, because he was clearly doing stuff that was really, really bad.
And it coincides exactly with the massive uptick in government-regulated, government-mandated vaccinations for children. That's the most outrageous part. They willingly give this to our kids. So if you look at the massive uptick in vaccines for school, it's 1982, isn't it?
Well, in 1986, Congress passed a law that gave almost blanket liability protection to the pharmaceutical industry and to medicine. And as soon as that happened, the vaccine schedule skyrocketed. Fauci's not directly over the childhood schedule, but he certainly is a cheerleader for vaccines. No question about it.
And when you're doing your research, you know, because this is Republicans, what you're describing is a Republican stronghold government that took the reins off of this. So when you're doing your research and all of the statistics of ADHD and autism and all of the health problems among our children, how bad was it before this?
It's sad. Over half.
Rhetorical
of all of
question. All right, I know it's rhetorical, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, kids are sick. To go into the military, over 70% of young adults could not qualify if they wanted to because of their poor physical and mental health. We have a children's health crisis, and Secretary Kennedy, who founded my organization, Children's Health Defense, really has championed, we must turn this around. This is a national security issue. The country will not survive if all of its future adults are sick.
Well, there also has to be some sort of a penalty for this. Don't you feel that there has to be? Otherwise,
absolutely, it'll keep happening. So I'm happy that the criminal referral by Senator Rand Paul of Dr. Fauci for his contempt of the Senate committee, that's been referred now to the Attorney General. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with that criminal referral, but 3 states have already said that they are investigating Dr. Fauci for bringing criminal charges, including Louisiana and Florida. It's getting the third one. So I don't think he's out of the woods yet at all. But remember, he got basically an unconditional federal pardon from President Biden on the last day he had in office, and it was a retroactive pardon back to 2014. So, but it's still, he's not out of the woods at all. There's a lot, but don't think that he acted alone, Shaun. There was Deborah Birx, there was Robert Redfield, and then there was the U.S., the Department of Defense that was really running the whole Operation Warp Speed. There are a lot of culpable people out there.
Mary, you're talking to a guy that doesn't take an aspirin, and I'm not even kidding you. I don't take an aspirin. And the reason is I'm aware of the bastardization of what used to be called capitalism is now corporatism. And when I say there needs to be a consequence, I could care less about Fauci as far as I'm concerned. He got away with it. I want to go after the big dog. Who is really culpable are the pharmaceutical companies. I want to bring them to their knees. But they're brilliant in their corruption because they actually became an integral part of our economy. Not only that, they've bought enough politicians. They make Don Corleone look like an altar boy.
Oh, absolutely. Street drugs have nothing on Big Pharma. But, it goes even higher than Big Pharma. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that there was, very significant involvement of the U.S. military, of NATO. This is very, very deep, and we've just begun to scratch the surface.
One of the things that fascinated me in the 70s was there used to be an incredible guy who led an economic revival of intelligence, Milton Friedman, and he would have a show constantly. He would go over it. I'm sure you remember in the 70s. And he would talk about the bastardization of the Doctor Association for Healthcare. What is it? The AC?
American Medical Association.
That's it. And he would talk about how they were manipulating cholesterol. They were manipulating blood pressure. They were manipulating heart medication. And these organizations somehow never face any real consequences. Well, these are the organizations that control the movements of the doctors. These are the organizations that sit idly by while doctors not only give drugs that may do nothing if you're lucky, may do harm. These are the same organizations that said nothing when Oxycontin, and I'm probably butchering it from my Chicago accent, was distributed to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Americans. Yeah. And now we know that this drug was more addictive than heroin and crack cocaine.
And they knew. And it was absolutely obvious. Well, don't forget that these organizations like the American Medical Association, the American Pediatric Association, they're basically run by pharma, right? Pharma funds them, and essentially they are front organizations that look, quote unquote, professional. But it's pharma. Pharma runs not only our health sector, but they're huge, they're huge lobbyists. They contribute to every person in Congress who will take their money. They're very shrewd, as you point out, and they worked out this liability protection for vaccines, which is why vaccines are so attractive to pharma, because they can push them out and they know that they can basically pay no consequences, and they may even be able to compel them, like what happened in COVID and for the childhood schedule. Think about it. You have a captive market. You can compel people to take the product. Then the doctors and pharma have no liability. I mean, it's
and how many people know that pharma is really oil, the big oil? There is no big pharma without big oil. Big oil started big pharma. So you really want, I mean, you could really motivate everybody in the country. After all, it's big oil. So it's amazing that lawyers, and I say this lovingly, my best friend's an attorney. I mean, I understand you guys are against the wall. There's about 10% of you that are good. But still, they're smart. Why can nobody go after these entities, these actual entities that dictate?
We are going after these entities, but the Congress has been bought by big pharma and passed laws that give liability protection. So it's hard. It's actually very hard to construct the lawsuits, but I promise you we are doing that every day at Children's Health Defense, and we have actually had some significant wins, but it's hard.
Because what you've really done is you've tried to educate people, because once you educate people, at least you can save the individual who can read and reason and doesn't want to be part of the herd. And really, that's the way it always works. I mean, after all, who really makes the country go around but a third of people? So if you can get to that third, you can at least keep the people who are useful healthy. And that's really how you've started. And when did you get involved with the Children's Health Defense? Because before that, I remember, weren't you always warning about vaccines and starting about knowledge of the individual long before this organization, weren't you?
Yes, I was. So I've been in this about 25 years. I have an adult son who regressed into autism after his vaccines. No question that the vaccines were the trigger for his developmental regression. But I joined Children's Health Defense in 2019, but it was founded by Secretary Kennedy 10 years ago in 2016. And we've grown, so we definitely are engaged in advocacy and education. I agree, grassroots is where it's ultimately at. We also have a science division. We publish original science related to these topics, and we do litigation. And we do litigation around vaccines and around religious rights and around mandates, and also around electromagnetic radiation. We believe that electromagnetic radiation is a growing cause of serious health concerns for children in particular.
As a lawyer, when you look at evidence, your whole life, you look at evidence, you're in this medical arena. When you look at what has happened and the people that were silly enough to believe in this system we have of American health, and you look at Peter Thiel, who is a billionaire. I don't know if you saw his admission. He had written in a letter to a business channel that his wife has had 7 miscarriages, and they followed everything he was trying to get. They were trying to get pregnant during COVID. And or Ackman, I'm sorry, Bill Ackman. I said Peter Thiel.
Bill Ackman. Peter Thiel.
Yeah. I got my billionaires confused, Mary. I'm sorry. I got a lot of voices in my head, and possibly a song, "The Girl from Ipanema."
I did see that. And that is. I think the miscarriage story that they all knew that this was going to cause problems, and yet they told the world, "Oh, it's perfectly safe, nothing to worry about." I think people really get how venal that was, how cruel that was, how hateful that was, how contemptuous that was of the American public.
How deliberate. They didn't care who they affected, whether it was a billionaire.
Knowing lies.
So that's what I was going to ask you. As a lawyer, there's no question in your mind. Intent. This is intent. It's the definition of intent.
Oh, absolutely. This is deception. This is intentional fraud on the American public. It is culpable. It is criminal. It's life and death matters. They did cause, not only did they cause the death of people, but they certainly caused miscarriages. And that's just particularly venal.
So
it would have been, they could have said, we really don't know about the first trimester. Don't take it in the first trimester. I mean, how hard would that have been for them to say?
So now I have relatives. I go back often to see my nieces and nephews, who I love to death. I have my own kids and the rest of it. So if you were talking right now with everything you've lived through and how you've dedicated your life to this mission to educate people, and you had a daughter out of nowhere, poof, you have a 23-year-old daughter, 25-year-old daughter, and she's a newlywed and she gets pregnant. and she went to college, and you financed her to go to college, like so many of my listeners. You send this beautiful little girl with the pigtails off. She loves America. She comes back. She's a commie. You got this kid now. You're talking. What was the one thing, because I'm going to have you talk to my family, because, you know, if you're related, nobody listens to you. So you, as somebody who has dedicated decades of your life studying vaccines, the ramifications and the outcome, what would you tell your imaginary pregnant daughter?
My imaginary pregnant commie daughter who went to college and thinks she knows everything. I would say, dear, just wait. Don't be in a rush. I'm going to give you some things to read. I'm going to ask you to watch a couple videos. I want you to keep an open mind. There's no rush here. I want you to wait and really think about this decision before you act on it. There's no urgency here. Your baby's not going to catch measles or hepatitis on the day of birth. Let's let you really get yourself educated, because it is a very important decision. It could change your baby's life and your life forever.
How about tetanus? What's the kid going to go out and change an alternator? There's no need for tetanus either. And you know where you can get all that information? childrenshealthdefense.org, can't you?
Absolutely. We have a wealth of information. We have a place where it says, you're new to the site, come look at this first. There's a lot of information on the website. I edited a book that I think is particularly good for the daughter that you mentioned. It's called Turtles All the Way Down, Vaccine Science and Myth. And it really starts with the idea of, you don't know anything, and you hear all the scientists and doctors say vaccinate, but then you hear there's these parents, who say don't. Let's just start you off and from the very beginning. And it's a great book because it's only using traditional, accepted sources like the CDC, and it basically shows you step by step there has never been adequate safety testing of vaccines ever.
Yeah. No.
And so it just helps you understand, it takes you from A to Z on this issue to understand there are no real safety guardrails. This is a massive experiment that is going wrong. 70% of 18-year-olds are unfit.
So I'm going to give you the title of your next book. I'm going to give it to you for free because I love you. I love the organization. Are you ready? How many children of the Depression had autism? Riddle me that. Zero. Thank you very much, Mary Holland. I love what you do. I really do. And this idea that you have given this information for free, all you have to do is go to childrenshealthdefense.org to learn about it. See, you're directed to the material to get it for yourself and read about it and educate yourself. Mary Holland, you are truly a treasure to America. So thank you for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shaun.
Thank you. We'll be back with your calls and comments.
Make money, smoke cigars, and live free on the Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer. Maybe you've thought about taking a cruise. Maybe you've even talked yourself out of it. But this is not just another vacation. This is the Gulf of America cruise. 7 days through the Caribbean with Mike Gallagher, Scott Jennings, Larry O'Connor, Jennifer Horn, and a ship full of people who love this country. No packing and unpacking, no complicated planning, just great destinations, meaningful conversations, and a once-in-a-generation celebration of America's 250th. This November, be there. Text CRUISE to 94878 to book your cabin today.
If you're near retirement or thinking about retiring, you probably have a lot of questions. How do you make your savings last? How much should you take out and when? You're ready for retirement, but are your finances? I'm Edward Jones financial advisor, Nolan Webster. Let's work together to make sure your finances meet your unique needs over the long haul. You've done what it takes to get there. Now it's time to make the most of retirement. Call me at 224-801-6107 to schedule an appointment.